Hello everyone, I am Dr. Arti Garg, Assistant Professor in School of Business Management at IFTM University, Muradabad. I hope you all are safe in this pandemic situation. Let's start the topic, that is Introduction to Public Finance. Now what do you mean by public finance? The word public finance comprises of two words, that is public and finance. The word public is used generally for government or state. All type of government, whether center, state and local, can be included in the public authorities. Now the word finance means money relating matters, that is how government deals with the financial resources in the best possible manner so as to maximize the social welfare. So the word public finance is the finance of the government as how government deals with the income and expenditure and with their adjustment with each other. So it is a study of the nature and principle of state expenditure and state revenue. According to C.F. Bastable, public finance deals with the expenditure and income of public authorities of the state and their mutual relation as also with the financial administration and control. According to Philip Taylor, public finance deals with the finance of the public as an organized group under the institution of government. It thus deals with the finance of the government. Now, what is the scope of public finance? In earlier times, the public finance is only associated with public revenue and public expenditure. But in modern times, its area and its importance has been expanded. The first one is public revenue. Now, public revenue is the income of the government. It deals with the method of raising fund and principle of taxation. In this branch, we study the various ways of raising revenue by the public bodies. We also study the principles and effects of taxation and how the burden of taxation is shared among the various classes of society, etc. It also includes that what are the sources of public revenue, what should be the rules for the implementation of public revenue, and what would be the effect of public revenue on country's production and financial distribution. Next is public expenditure. Public expenditure deals with the principles and problems relating to the allocation of public spending. We study the fundamental principles governing the flow of public funds into different channels, classification and justification of public expenditure, expenditure policies of governments and the measures adopted for welfare state, etc. In public expenditure, we studied that how public expenditure should be categorized, what should be the area and principles of public expenditure, and what would be the effect of public expenditure on country's production and financial distribution. Next is public debt. Now, public debt is a study of various principles and methods of raising debts and their economic effects. It also deals with the methods of repayment and management of public debt. Public debt. Public debt occurs when there is a gap between the expenditure and revenues. When expenditure exceeds the revenue, there occurs a gap which is known as deficit, and that gap can only be fulfilled with the help of borrowing, either from the financial institutions and other financial markets. Next is financial administration. It deals with the methods of budget preparation, various types of budgets, war finance, development finance, etc. Thus, financial administration refers to the mechanism by which the financial functions are carried on. In other words, financial administration studies the organizing and disbursing of the finance of the state. And last is economic stabilization and growth. The income and expenditure policies adopted by the government to secure stability in levels of prices by controlling inflationary as well as deflationary pressures is studied as well as so as to attain full employment, optimum use of resources, equitable distribution of income, etc. are also studied. Now the next important topic is what is the difference between public finance and private finance. We already studied about the public finance. Now, what do you mean by private finance? The private finance is the finance of an individual person, that is how an individual person deals with their finances. The first basic difference between these two terms is determination of expenditure. In case of public finance, the government first plan their expenditure and then after their revenues. But in case of private finance, an individual person first plan their revenue and then after their expenditures. Second important difference between public finance and private finance is compulsory character. In case of public finance, the expenditure is of compulsory nature. The government cannot cancel or even postpone their expenditure. But in case of private finance, an individual person can cancel or even postpone their expenditure. Next is nature of budget. In case of public finance, balanced budget is considered good. But in case of private finance, surplus budget is considered good. In case of public finance, balanced budget is considered good because if it is a surplus budget, that means government is levying more taxes on the people than is necessary. And if the budget is deficit, that means that government is not spending as much as the welfare of the people as it should. Next is nature of resources. The government can borrow money from general public and foreign countries when needed. But in case of private finance, the resources of getting income of a person are limited. Next is motive of expenditure. The main objective of public finance is the public welfare. But in case of private finance, the main motive is the personal profit. Next is pattern of expenditure. The expenditure in case of public finance is guided by the general economic policies, that is monetary policy and fiscal policy. But in case of private finance, the expenditure is governed by the customs, habits, trends, social status, preferences and fashion and etc. Next is long-term consideration. In case of public finance, government believe to invest in long-term as well as short-term projects. But in case of private finance, an individual person can only invest in short-term projects because they don't want to take risk. Next is coercive method. In case of public finance, the government can use coercive method for getting their income back by penalizing the income. But in case of private finance, an individual person cannot use coercive method for getting their income back. Last is publicity and audit. In case of public finance, the government must disclose all the financial deals to the society. But in case of private finance, an individual need not reveal their financial transactions to anyone except for filing tax returns. I hope the things are now clear to you. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you.